Today we're going to talk about improv piecing and quilt top assembly. I had a great conversation with a quilter recently. She said she tried improv quilting and she found it too difficult for the assembly of the quilt top. And so today we're going to talk about how to simplify that and approach it with some baby steps. We are starting with two 10-inch blocks. We're placing them on top of each other, right sides up. The prompt for all of these blocks is going to be to cut 2 slices parallel. And we're going to see how many ways can we do that. They can be narrow, they can be wide, they can be straight, they can be curved, they can be vertical, they can be horizontal, they can be 45 degrees, 29 degrees. It's really unlimited. And this is all from a single prompt. Block number 1. Normally when I do an exercise like this, I use black and white. However, today I was feeling like using prints. So if you decide to use prints, make sure they have high contrast between the two. And here we have the darker black. When you place them on top of each other, they don't have to be perfect because we will be trimming these blocks down. When you piece improvisationally, there is no seam allowance taken into account. That means when you sew, especially curves, it's going to get wonky and the blocks are going to change shapes and sizes and you're going to need to trim. So when this is all said and done, what I do is I look for the smallest block and measure that. In this case, it ended up being 8.5 inches. So I trimmed all the blocks to 8.5 inches. And because we're using 8.5-inch blocks for all of these pieces, that means that your assembly will be as simplified as it can be. You will also see toward the end of the video, when I am placing it on the design wall, that sometimes you will want to veer from just using the square blocks, and you may want to add to the blocks. You move them around for different reasons, and we'll go on into the detail of that in a bit. But that is how you go from the simplest of simple to the more complicated versions of improvisational quilt top piecing, or quilt top engineering as it's also known. Many of you have mentioned in the comments that you enjoy watching me sew and listening to the hum of the sewing machine. And so I am going to do just that. Let you watch me sew and listen to the sound of the sewing machine. And I am going to play a little bit of some kind of music in the background here for you. And if you don't like that, you can always turn the sound off. I will be back to chat when the blocks are pieced. I'll see you then. So here I'm taking what I just cut and using it as a relative template so that those curves are parallel. You may be thinking, if I was doing this and I had to stick with parallel lines, I'd probably do this. So if you have ideas, throw them in the chat for us. You could see my drumming fingers at one point where I was a little bit stuck, like, what do I do next? So this is all with one single prompt. Can you imagine if we extended this prompt to say, well, how could we extend it? We could say, instead of cutting 2 slices, cut 3 slices, 4 slices, keeping them parallel. Or maybe we keep them parallel, but then we put 2 blocks on top of each other and cut more parallel. So the opportunities really are endless. And that's what I love about this process. One of the things, anyway. I love many things about this process. Before I go on to the next phase, I would like to mention that I do have an online, on-demand workshop that is on this exact thing, and it goes into much more detail. It gives you many more prompts. There are actually 11 steps and a downloadable list of prompts that you can use as you develop your own look, your own artistic style with quilting. I think you may enjoy it. I highly recommend taking it, especially if you are going to visit me at one of my 5-day workshops in person. This is a really great start to kind of a foundation studies, let's just say, to get you thinking like an artist, and you'll be ready to rock. So check it out. I have a link here on the screen, and I will also put it in the description. That way you can find it quickly on my website. Okay, let's get back to this project. Here is my design wall, and I am just putting the blocks up for the first time. I don't really have a rhyme or reason at this point, but you saw me flip that one, and I guess subconsciously I am putting them up in a way that is kind of mirroring the block next to it. And it doesn't really matter where you start or how you put them up. You just want to put them up so you can see what you have to work with. And then I like to take a picture because then I get to see it small. And this is what it looks like. And you see here how those are the companion blocks, the light and dark versus the dark versus light. So it's all symmetrical. And because it was symmetrical, this is what I saw. A face, of course. There it is. Can you see the face? So then, because I have it documented with a photo, I feel free to do another arrangement. This time I went from light to medium to dark to see what that would give me. And of course, I saw another face. So I arranged them once again. And this time I saw an insect, or maybe it's an alien, not sure. So I rearranged them once again and came up with this. And here is where we segue into the next level of difficulty. So I'm going to want to add some new fabric or blocks into the spaces that you see here where the rectangles are. And that is because I've lined the blocks up to try and build something. In this case, it looks like a plant or a branch. And so I am going to need to go in and fill that in with either a new block, maybe a block that looks like a leaf, maybe just a background block. It all depends. So now we've got the square blocks and we've got some rectangles. Still relatively easy. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's video as we both journey together down this improv quilting adventure. Thank you for being here, everyone, and I hope to see you next time.